The wildfire came without warning, sweeping through Embercrest Reach like the wrath of an angry god. Vera had been foraging near the edge of pack territory when she smelled smoke. Not the pleasant scent of a campfire or hearth, but the acrid, choking smell of a forest burning out of control. She looked up to see a wall of orange and red advancing through the trees, consuming everything in its path with terrifying speed. The drought had lasted 3 months, turning the usually lush forest into a tinderbox. One spark, whether from lightning or carelessness, and the whole territory had erupted into flames. Now that fire was spreading faster than wolves could run, driven by wind that seemed determined to destroy everything in its path. Vera did not hesitate. She grabbed her foraging basket and the clay jug of water she always carried and started running. Around her, she could hear other wolves fleeing, their howls of alarm and fear echoing through the smoke-filled air. Birds took flight in panicked clouds. Deer crashed through the underbrush, all sense of caution abandoned in their desperation to escape. The heat was already intense, turning the air shimmering and difficult to breathe. Vera's eyes watered from the smoke, her lungs burning with each gasp. She had lived in Embercrest territory her whole life, knew these woods better than anyone. But the fire was transforming familiar landscape into nightmare, making navigation nearly impossible. She was human, not a shifter, which meant she could not run as fast as the wolves fleeing around her. Could not shift into a form better suited to escape. She was just Vera, a woman of 25 who gathered herbs and made her living selling remedies to pack members who tolerated her presence but never truly accepted her. Her parents had been pack, but they died when she was young, leaving her alone and unprotected in a society that valued strength and wolf blood above all else. She had survived by being useful, by providing healing skills that even proud wolves occasionally needed. But she was always an outsider, always one step from being cast out entirely. Not that any of that mattered now. The fire did not care about pack politics or bloodlines. It consumed wolf and human with equal hunger. Vera ran through the burning forest, her dress catching on brambles, her shoes sliding on ash-covered ground. The basket of herbs fell from her grip, scattering months of careful gathering. But she kept hold of the water jug, clutching it to her chest as she stumbled forward. Water was life. In a wildfire, water was salvation. The jug she carried held perhaps 2 liters, enough to keep her alive for a day if she could find safety. Enough to extinguish small flames on her clothing if sparks caught, enough to make the difference between life and death. She was following a stream bed that should lead to the river, to the safety of water that fire could not cross. Other wolves had the same idea, their forms visible through the smoke as they raced toward safety. Vera pushed herself harder, her heart hammering, her breath coming in ragged gasps. And then she heard it. Through the roar of the fire, through the crash of burning trees and the screams of fleeing animals, she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. A wolf howling in agony, trapped, burning. Vera should have kept running. Every instinct screamed at her to save herself, to reach the river, to survive. One trapped wolf was not worth her life, not when dozens of others were escaping. She was human, weak, already struggling to stay ahead of the flames. Stopping meant death. She stopped anyway, following the sound of that agonized howling. Vera turned off the path toward the river and plunged deeper into the burning forest. The heat intensified immediately, becoming almost unbearable. Flames licked at trees on either side of her, raining burning debris that singed her hair and dress. The smoke was so thick she could barely see, could barely breathe, but she could still hear that wolf howling, and something in her refused to leave any creature to burn alive. She found him in a small clearing that had become a trap. A massive tree, engulfed in flames, had fallen directly across a wolf so large that Vera's first thought was that he must be Alpha. He was pinned beneath the burning trunk, his pale cream-colored fur already scorched black in places, flames licking across his body as he struggled uselessly against the weight holding him down. His amber eyes found Vera through the smoke, and she saw recognition there. Awareness. This was no ordinary wolf panicking in pain. This was a shifter, fully conscious, knowing he was about to die. The clearing itself was a hellscape. Trees that had stood for centuries were now torches, their branches crashing down in showers of sparks. The heat was so intense that Vera's skin felt tight, like it might split open from the sheer temperature. Every breath seared her lungs. Every moment standing there was torture. Her dress was already smoking in places where embers had landed, her hair singed at the ends from proximity to the flames. The wolf was magnificent, even in his agony. His size suggested not just alpha, but royalty of some kind, the kind of wolf that others instinctively deferred to. His fur, where it was not burned, was the color of fresh cream, unusual and striking. And those amber eyes held intelligence and pain in equal measure, watching her with an expression that seemed to understand exactly what he was asking simply by existing in front of her. Vera's mind raced through her options. The tree was too large to move. Even if she had help, even if she had tools, there was no shifting that burning mass of wood. The wolf was trapped, and the flames were consuming him slowly, ensuring his death would be agonizing and prolonged. She could try to dig beneath him, create space for him to pull free. But the ground was hard-packed, and she had nothing to dig with except her bare hands. By the time she made any progress, the fire would have consumed them both. She could run for help, try to find other wolves, bring them back to attempt a rescue. But that would take time she did not have. Minutes at most before the wolf was dead, before the flames surrounding this clearing became impassable. Or she could use her water. All of it. Every drop she had, carefully rationed and carried through the fire. The water that represented her only chance of survival if she could not reach the river quickly enough. Vera looked at the jug of water in her hands. 2 liters. Barely enough to make a difference against the inferno surrounding them. If she used it on the wolf, she would have nothing left for herself. No water to drink if she got lost in the smoke. No way to protect herself from the flames if her clothes caught fire. No chance of survival if she did not reach the river quickly. The logical choice was to leave, to preserve her water, to keep running, to save herself. One wolf's life, even an alpha's life, was not worth throwing away her only resource for survival. But Vera had never been particularly good at making logical choices when someone was suffering in front of her. Vera looked at the jug of water in her hands. 2 liters. Barely enough to make a difference against the inferno surrounding them. If she used it on the wolf, she would have nothing left for herself. No water to drink, no way to protect herself from the flames, no chance of survival if she could not reach the river quickly. The wolf's eyes met hers, and she saw no expectation there. No demand for rescue, just resignation, mixed with something that looked almost like apology. He knew what he was asking simply by existing in front of her, knew that saving him would likely cost her everything. Vera uncorked the jug and made her choice. She poured the water over the wolf in a steady stream, targeting the places where flames had caught his fur, where his skin was blistering beneath the scorched coat. The water hissed and steamed, creating billows of vapor that provided brief, blessed relief from the suffocating heat. It was not enough to extinguish the burning tree, not nearly enough to put out the fire surrounding them. But it was enough to douse the flames on the wolf's body, to give him a chance at survival if they could get him out from under that tree. The jug emptied quickly, every precious drop used. When it was done, Vera dropped the clay container and grabbed the wolf's front legs. He was massive, easily 3 times her weight, his body thick with muscle even in his injured state. There was no possible way she could move him. She tried anyway. Bracing her feet against the burning ground, Vera pulled with every ounce of strength she possessed. The wolf tried to help, his claws scrabbling for purchase, his powerful legs pushing against the earth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Agonizingly, his body began to slide free. The effort left Vera dizzy, her vision graying at the edges. The smoke was too thick, the heat too intense. She could feel her skin blistering, could taste blood in her mouth from lungs that were not meant to process air this hot and toxic. But the wolf was free. He struggled to his feet, favoring his left side where the tree had pinned him, his breath coming in pained wheezes. Burns covered a third of his body. His beautiful cream-colored fur blackened and singed, but he was alive. The wolf looked at Vera, then at the wall of fire surrounding them, and made a decision. He positioned himself beside her, low enough that she could climb onto his back. His intention was clear. "You are injured," Vera protested, even as flames advanced closer. "You cannot carry me." The wolf growled, a sound of pure alpha command, despite his condition. He would carry her, or they would both die arguing about it. Vera climbed onto his back, wrapping her arms around his neck, pressing herself low against his body. The moment she was secure, the wolf began to run. It should have been impossible. He was burned, injured, exhausted. But fear and determination gave him strength, and he ran through the burning forest like a creature possessed. Vera clung to his back, her face buried in his neck fur that still smelled of smoke and singed hair. Her eyes squeezed shut against the heat and sparks. She did not know how long they ran. It felt like hours, but was probably only minutes before she felt the wolf's gait change, felt him stumble into water that hissed around his burning paws. The river. They had reached the river. The wolf waded in until the water was deep enough to cover them both, then simply collapsed. Vera slid off his back into the blessed coolness, her body screaming relief as the heat finally released its grip. She surfaced gasping, her lungs desperate for clean air, her skin stinging where burns were soothed by the river's flow. Around them, other wolves were doing the same. The river was crowded with refugees from the fire, all seeking the safety of water that flames could not cross. Some were helping others, pulling injured packmates to safety. Some simply lay in the shallows, too exhausted or injured to do more than breathe. Vera looked for the wolf she had saved, the massive cream-colored male whose life she had bought with her water. He was nearby, his head barely above the surface, his amber eyes closed. Burns covered his body, the fur gone entirely in some places, to reveal raw, blistered skin beneath. She moved to his side, supporting his head above water, checking his breathing. It was labored, but steady. He was alive. They were both alive. "You are safe now," she murmured, not sure if he could even hear her. "You are going to be all right. I will make sure of it." The wolf's eyes opened slightly, meeting hers with an expression of such profound gratitude that Vera felt tears mix with the river water on her face. She had saved him. Against all logic and self-preservation, she had stopped in the middle of a wildfire to save a wolf she did not know, had poured out her only water to give him a chance at life. And somehow, impossibly, they had both survived. The wolf's eyes closed again, and Vera continued to support his head, keeping his nose above water, maintaining the vigil that she would keep for as long as necessary. Around them, the fire continued to rage on the shore, but here in the river, they were safe. Here, they could rest and heal and be grateful for another moment of life. Vera did not know that the wolf she had saved was Asher, Alpha King of Embercrest Pack. Did not know that he had been leading an evacuation of the Eastern Territories when the burning tree fell and trapped him. Did not know that his entire pack had thought him lost. That warriors had risked their lives searching for him before the fire forced them to retreat. She just knew that when she heard a creature in pain, when she saw someone in need, she could not walk away. Even if helping cost her everything. Even if the logical choice was to save herself. Because Vera had learned long ago that survival was not enough, that the quality of life mattered more than its length, and she would rather die trying to help someone than live knowing she had left them to burn. The wolf remained unconscious for hours, floating in the shallows with only Vera's arms keeping him from drowning. The water that had seemed like salvation now became its own challenge. Vera's arms ached from the constant effort of supporting the massive wolf's head, her muscles screaming for relief she could not give them. Her legs, planted in the riverbed to brace herself, had gone numb from the cold water. But she did not let go. Could not let go, because releasing him meant drowning him after everything they had survived to reach this point. Other wolves noticed, emerging from their own shock and exhaustion to recognize what they were seeing. Vera heard gasps, heard voices rising in disbelief and hope. She did not understand the words at first, her mind too focused on the simple task of keeping the wolf's nose above water, but gradually their meaning penetrated. Alpha, King, Asher. The words repeated, passing from wolf to wolf like a prayer being answered. This was not just any alpha she had saved. This was the Alpha King, the ruler of Embercrest Pack, the wolf that hundreds depended on for leadership and protection. A female wolf waded closer, her eyes wide with recognition and relief. "That is King Asher," she said, her voice trembling. "We thought he was lost. We searched, but the fire—" Her voice broke. "You saved him. Where did you find him?" "Burning," Vera said, her voice hoarse from smoke damage. "Trapped under a tree. I heard him howling." "You went toward the fire?" The female wolf looked at Vera like she had sprouted wings. "You are human. You could not have survived." "I almost did not," Vera admitted. "But I had water. I used it on him, put out the flames. He carried me here." More wolves were gathering now, forming a protective circle in the river around their fallen king. Some were injured themselves, burns and wounds, visible even in wolf form. But they prioritized their alpha, their bodies creating a living barrier between him and any potential threats, their presence providing comfort and security even in this desperate moment. An older male wolf, gray-muzzled and scarred, pushed through the crowd. When he saw Asher, his entire body seemed to sag with relief. He looked at Vera with eyes that held decades of wisdom and said simply, "Thank you. You have given us back our king. The pack will not forget this." Vera wanted to explain that she had not known who she was saving, that she would have done the same for any wolf in pain. But her arms were shaking with exhaustion, her grip on Asher's head weakening despite her determination. The older wolf seemed to sense her struggle. "Help her," he commanded, and immediately two younger wolves moved to support Asher's weight, giving Vera relief while ensuring their king remained safely above water. "And someone find the healers. The king needs treatment, and so does this human." Vera tried to protest that she was fine, that others were more severely injured, but the words came out as a cough that sent pain lancing through her smoke-damaged lungs. She had breathed too much toxic air, had pushed her body past reasonable limits. Now that the immediate crisis was over, her body was demanding payment for what she had forced it to endure. Strong hands caught her before she could slip beneath the surface, guided her to shallower water where she could sit rather than stand. A female voice, kind but firm, told her to breathe slowly, to let the healers work, to rest now that she had done the impossible. By the time rescue parties could safely approach, by the time healers waded into the river to tend the injured, Vera was barely conscious herself. Smoke inhalation, burns, exhaustion, and exposure had taken their toll. She had used every ounce of her strength keeping the wolf's head above water, and now that help had arrived, her body finally gave out. She felt herself slipping beneath the surface, felt strong hands catch her before the water could claim her. Heard voices calling for the healer, for bandages, for someone to help the human who had saved their king. And then everything went dark. Vera woke in a bed far more comfortable than anything she had ever slept on, in a room she did not recognize. Her body hurt everywhere, a dull ache punctuated by sharp stabs of pain when she tried to move. Bandages covered her arms and portions of her torso. The smell of healing salves filled the air. For a moment, she thought she had died. That this was some kind of afterlife, because surely she should not have survived that fire. Should not be lying in luxury when the last thing she remembered was drowning in the river. Then a door opened, and a woman entered carrying a tray. She was older, perhaps 50, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Her eyes widened when she saw Vera was awake. "You are awake. Thank the ancestors. We were not sure you would make it through the night." The woman set down the tray and moved to Vera's bedside. "How do you feel? Are you in pain? Do you need water?" Water. The word brought everything rushing back. The fire. The wolf. Using all her water to save him. The desperate flight to the river. "The wolf," Vera croaked, her voice barely working. "The one I pulled from the fire. Is he alive?" The woman's expression softened. "He is alive. Badly burned, but recovering. You saved him, Vera. You saved our Alpha King." Vera's mind struggled to process that. Alpha King? Asher. You saved Asher, Alpha King of Embercrest Pack. He was leading evacuations when the tree trapped him. We thought he was lost. The woman's eyes grew moist. "But you found him. You used your only water to extinguish the flames on his body. You pulled him free and helped him reach the river. You kept him from drowning until help arrived." "I did not know he was the king," Vera said weakly. "I just heard someone in pain." "That makes what you did even more remarkable." The woman smiled. "Most wolves would not have risked themselves for a stranger. But you did. Without hesitation, according to the witnesses who saw you run toward the fire instead of away from it." She helped Vera sit up enough to drink some water, supporting her carefully. "I am Helene, the head healer. You have been in my care for 2 days. The smoke inhalation was severe, and you have burns on your arms and back, but you will recover fully with time." 2 days. Vera had been unconscious for 2 days. The fire. Contained finally. The river served as a natural fire break, and rain came on the second day. Much of the Eastern Territory is destroyed, but most of the pack survived. We lost some, including those who were too old or young to escape quickly enough. Helene's face grew sad. But it would have been far worse if Asher had not been there to organize the evacuation before he was trapped. Vera leaned back against the pillows, exhausted from even this brief conversation. Her body needed rest, needed time to heal. But her mind was racing with questions. Where was she? What would happen now? Would she be allowed to return to her small cabin, assuming it had survived the fire? "Rest now," Helene said, as if reading her thoughts. "There will be time for questions later. Right now, you need to heal. And Vera? Everyone in Embercrest knows what you did. You are not going to be forgotten or overlooked anymore. You saved our king. That matters." Over the following days, Vera learned the full extent of what her actions meant. The cabin she had lived in was gone, consumed by fire, along with everything she owned. The herbs she had spent years cultivating, the remedies she had carefully prepared, the small collection of books her parents had left her, all of it reduced to ash and memory. But the pack had given her these rooms in the royal residence, had provided her with new clothes and supplies, had made it clear she was welcome for as long as she wished to stay. The quarters they had given her were in the guest wing, usually reserved for visiting dignitaries and important allies. The bedroom alone was larger than her entire cabin had been, with windows that overlooked the gardens and furniture carved from rich wood. It was overwhelming. Vera had spent her entire life as an outsider, tolerated but never valued. Now wolves she did not know were thanking her, offering gifts, asking if there was anything she needed. The shift from invisible to celebrated left her dizzy and unsure how to respond. The gifts started arriving on her second day of consciousness. Small things at first: a basket of fruit from a family whose daughter Vera had once treated for fever, a jar of honey from an elderly wolf who said his grandson had been in the evacuation group Asher organized, A hand-woven blanket from a woman who simply wanted Vera to know that her sacrifice had not gone unnoticed. Then, larger gifts followed. Nobles sent fine dresses and jewelry, apparently competing to see who could demonstrate the most gratitude. Merchants offered free goods from their shops. Warriors pledged their protection should she ever need it. Even children drew pictures of the fire and the brave human who had saved their king, their artwork colorful and earnest, and somehow more precious than all the expensive gifts combined. Helene warned her not to let it go to her head. "Fame is fickle," the healer said, helping Vera sort through the flood of offerings. "Today, you are a hero. Tomorrow you will just be the human who lives in the royal residence. Enjoy the attention while it lasts, but do not come to depend on it." But there was more to the pack's reaction than simple gratitude. Vera began to notice the conversations that stopped when she entered a room, the speculative looks that followed her through the halls. Wolves were wondering what would happen next. Would the Alpha King reward her with gold and send her away? Would he give her a position in the pack? Would he find her a suitable mate among his warriors, binding her to Embercrest through marriage? No one seemed to have considered the possibility that Asher himself might be her mate. Humans and shifters did not bond that way. It was not how the world worked. So the pack prepared for Vera's inevitable departure, for the moment when the gratitude faded and she returned to being just another human living on the fringes of their world. Vera felt the weight of their expectations and found herself dreading that moment. She had tasted belonging, had experienced what it felt like to be valued and seen. Returning to invisibility after this brief moment of recognition would hurt in ways she was not sure she could bear. But she kept those fears to herself, accepting the gifts with grace, thanking wolves for their kindness, and trying not to think too hard about what would happen when the excitement faded and she was left with nothing but memories of a time when she mattered. But more than anything, she wanted to see the wolf she had saved, wanted to make sure he was truly recovering, that her sacrifice had been worth it. It took 5 days before Helene declared Vera well enough to walk further than her room. On the 6th morning, the healer helped her dress and then led her through the halls of what Vera now understood was the royal residence, a sprawling structure that had survived the fire thanks to stone construction and vigilant guards who had extinguished any sparks that landed on the roof. They stopped before an ornate door, and Helene knocked softly before opening it. "He has been asking about you," she said. "Every day since he regained consciousness, he wants to meet the human who saved him." Vera's heart hammered as she entered the room. It was large and well-appointed, with windows that let in morning light. And in the bed, propped up on pillows with bandages visible beneath his sleeping tunic, was a man who made her breath catch. He was perhaps 30, with blonde hair that fell to his shoulders, and those same amber eyes she remembered from the wolf pinned beneath the burning tree. His face was strong, handsome in a way that spoke of good breeding and better genetics. Even injured, even bandaged, he radiated authority and strength. This was Asher, Alpha King, the wolf whose life she had saved without knowing his importance. His eyes locked onto her the moment she entered, and Vera saw recognition there, relief, and something else. Something that made the mate bond she did not know existed suddenly snap into place with overwhelming force. Vera gasped, her hand flying to her chest as warmth and rightness and belonging flooded through her. The bond, ancient and undeniable, connecting her to this man, to this Alpha King she barely knew. It was like suddenly discovering she had been walking around incomplete her entire life, and only now, in this moment, had the missing piece clicked into place. The sensation was overwhelming. Her heart raced, her skin tingled. Her wolf, wait, she did not have a wolf. She was human, but something inside her recognized him anyway, responded to him with an intensity that defied logic or biology. Asher's expression showed he felt it too. His amber eyes widened, his breath catching audibly. His hands gripped the bedsheets as if anchoring himself against the force of what was happening between them. You, he said, his voice rough from smoke damage but clear enough. You are my mate. I do not understand, Vera whispered, though her body understood perfectly. Every cell in her was screaming recognition, demanding she go to him, claim him, complete the bond. Her feet were already moving before her conscious mind decided to approach, drawn by something far more primal than rational thought. The mate bond, Asher said, never taking his eyes from her face. His voice held wonder and certainty in equal measure. I felt it in the fire when you poured that water over me, when you chose to save me instead of yourself. But I was in too much pain to process it fully, too focused on getting us both to safety to understand what my wolf was trying to tell me. He shifted in the bed, wincing at the pain from his healing burns, but not looking away from her. In the river, when you held my head above water for hours, when you kept me alive through sheer determination and strength of will, the bond was there then too, wrapping around us both, but I was unconscious, drowning in smoke and exhaustion, unable to act on what I felt. His voice dropped, becoming rougher with emotion. And these past 6 days, while you were recovering and I was trapped in this bed, all I could think about was you, the human who ran toward fire instead of away from it, who used her only water to save a stranger, who helped me escape and then refused to let me drown, even when her own body was failing. I thought I was just grateful, just impressed by your courage. But now, seeing you here, healthy and whole and real. His voice broke slightly. The bond is undeniable. You are mine, and I am yours. And somehow the universe decided that the woman who would save my life would also be the one destined to share it. Vera found she had moved to stand beside his bed without consciously deciding to do so. This close, the bond was even stronger, pulling at her with magnetic intensity. She could feel his emotions bleeding through the connection. Relief, joy, wonder, fear that she would reject him, hope that she would accept what fate had decided. I am human, she said, the words coming out barely above a whisper. Humans do not have mates. We do not feel bonds or destiny or whatever this is. And alpha kings do not mate with humans. This must be a mistake. Some effect of the fire or the smoke or the trauma, making us both feel things that are not real. Does this feel like a mistake? Asher reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. The moment their skin touched, the bond flared brighter, warmer, more insistent. Does this feel unreal? Helene had quietly left, closing the door behind her, giving them privacy for this moment. Vera stood frozen, trying to reconcile everything she was feeling with everything she understood about her life. I am human, she said. Humans do not have mates, and alpha kings do not mate with humans. This must be a mistake. The mate bond does not make mistakes. Asher tried to sit up further, winced at the pain from his burns. Vera, I know this is overwhelming. I know you did not ask for this. But from the moment you stopped in that fire, from the moment you poured your water over me knowing it might cost your life, I knew. My wolf knew. You are mine, and I am yours. Vera's knees felt weak. She moved to a chair near the bed and sat before she could fall. This is too much. I saved you because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted a reward or recognition or... She gestured helplessly. A mate bond with the Alpha King. I know. Asher's voice was gentle. You did not save me expecting anything in return. That is part of what makes you so extraordinary. You saw someone in pain and helped without calculation or thought for yourself. You gave your water, your only chance of survival, to a wolf you did not know. That selflessness, that compassion. That is what my wolf recognized. That is what the bond responded to. He reached out a hand, palm up, an offering, not a demand. Come here, please. Let me at least thank you properly for saving my life. Vera hesitated, but the pull of the bond was strong. She stood and moved to the bedside, placing her hand carefully in his. The moment their skin touched, the bond flared brighter, warmer, more insistent. Asher lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. "Thank you. For my life. For your compassion. For being exactly who you are. I do not know what I did to deserve a mate like you, but I will spend my life being grateful for that fire and for the woman brave enough to run toward it instead of away." Tears spilled down Vera's cheeks. "You almost died. We both almost died. All I could think about in the river was that I had thrown away my life for a stranger, that maybe I was an idiot for making that choice. And now?" Asher asked softly. "Now I am glad I made it. Glad you are alive. Glad I did not run past when I heard you howling." She smiled through her tears. "Even if it means dealing with this mate bond thing that makes absolutely no sense." Asher's laugh was warm, despite the pain it clearly caused his healing ribs. "We will figure it out together, the bond, the politics, all of it. But Vera, I need you to understand something. When I felt that bond form, when I realized the woman saving me was my fated mate, it gave me a reason to survive beyond just duty to my pack. You gave me that. You are my savior in more ways than one." Over the following weeks, as they both healed from their injuries, Vera and Asher navigated the complexities of an unexpected mate bond. The physical attraction was undeniable, the emotional connection growing stronger each day. But the practical realities of their situation created obstacles that neither could simply ignore. The first challenge came from Asher's council, a group of advisors and high-ranking pack members who had significant influence over pack policy. They gathered 3 days after the mate bond was revealed, and Asher invited Vera to attend the meeting, wanting her to understand what they were facing. Lord Brennan, the eldest council member, spoke with careful diplomacy. "My king, we are grateful beyond words that you survived the fire, and we owe Vera a debt that can never be fully repaid. But a human Luna? The pack has never had a Luna who poured her only water on a burning stranger." Asher interrupted, his voice carrying alpha command that made even Lord Brennan straighten instinctively. "The pack has never had a Luna who kept their king from drowning for hours, despite her own injuries. The pack has never had a Luna who embodies compassion and selflessness, the way Vera does." Lady Soren, the military commander, leaned forward. "We do not question her character or her actions, my king. We question the practicalities. She cannot shift. She cannot feel pack bonds. She cannot fight if challenged. How can she lead wolves when she is not one of us?" Vera had been silent up until this point, but now she found her voice. "You are correct, Lady Soren. I cannot do any of those things, but I can heal. I can show compassion. I can make decisions that consider the weakest members of the pack, not just the strongest. Is that not also leadership?" The room fell silent. Finally, Elder Marcus, who had been alpha before Asher's father, spoke. "The girl has a point. We have been led by strength for generations. Perhaps it is time we balance that with compassion. The ancestors know we could use more of it." But the resistance did not end there. Over the following days, Vera overheard conversations in the halls, saw the looks that some wolves gave her. Not all were hostile. Many were simply uncertain how to treat a human who was mated to their king. But enough were openly opposed that Vera began to doubt whether she should accept the bond at all. She brought her concerns to Asher one evening as they sat in the gardens, the rebuilt territory spread out below them. "Maybe this is a mistake," she said quietly. "Maybe the bond formed because of extreme circumstances, but that does not mean we should act on it. You need a Luna who can truly lead the pack, not a human who will always be seen as an outsider." Asher took her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "Do you feel the bond weakening? Do you feel less connected to me now than you did in the fire?" Vera had to admit she did not. If anything, the bond had grown stronger, more insistent, more impossible to ignore. No. But what I feel does not change the political reality. Your pack deserves better than a Luna who will divide them. My pack deserves exactly what you will give them, Asher said. A Luna who understands suffering because she has suffered. A Luna who values every life, regardless of rank or status. A Luna who will make the hard choices not based on power or politics, but on what is actually right. He squeezed her hand. That is what you did in the fire, Vera. You made the hard choice. You poured out your water knowing it might cost everything. That is the kind of leadership we need. But Asher was unmovable in his defense of Vera and their bond. He explained again and again how she had risked everything to save him, how the mate bond had formed in that moment of ultimate sacrifice. He made it clear that anyone who could not accept his mate would need to leave his pack. And slowly, grudgingly, wolves began to accept what their king declared. Especially when they saw how Vera handled herself with quiet dignity, how she continued her healing work without asking for special treatment, how she treated every wolf, regardless of rank, with the same compassion she had shown when she saved Asher from the fire. 3 months after the wildfire, Vera stood in the rebuilt Great Hall of Embercrest Pack, wearing a gown of amber and cream that matched Asher's eyes and his wolf's fur. Her platinum blonde hair was styled elaborately, woven with gold thread and autumn flowers. A crown of hammered gold rested on her head, marking her as Luna, as queen, as the mate of the Alpha King. The formal bonding ceremony was emotional for everyone who attended. Warriors who had searched desperately for their missing king stood with tears in their eyes. Elders who had lived through countless challenges spoke of how Vera's compassion in the face of disaster embodied the best qualities any Luna could possess. And wolves, who had lost homes and loved ones in the fire, found hope in this union, in this proof that even from destruction, something beautiful could emerge. When Asher and Vera spoke their vows, when they sealed their bond before the pack, every wolf in the hall felt the rightness of it. This was meant to be. This human woman, who had poured out her water to save a burning wolf, who had helped him escape certain death, who had kept him alive in the river, she was exactly the Luna they needed. That night, alone in their chambers, Asher pulled Vera close and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Stopping when you heard me? Using your water? All the changes that decision brought?" Vera thought about her old life, her small cabin, her solitary existence on the fringes of pack territory. Thought about the woman she had been before the fire, invisible and overlooked. Then she thought about who she was now, Luna of Embercrest, mate to a king who looked at her like she held the sun, partner in rebuilding a territory and a pack that had been devastated by disaster, healer whose skills were valued and sought after, woman who had proven that compassion and sacrifice mattered more than bloodline or strength. "No," she said firmly, "I do not regret it, not any of it. That fire took everything I owned, but it gave me everything I needed. It gave me you. It gave me purpose. It gave me proof that choosing compassion over self-preservation is always the right choice." She tilted her head up to kiss him, gentle and sweet. "Besides, how could I regret saving the most stubborn, grateful, wonderful wolf I have ever met?" Asher laughed and kissed her back, deeper this time, the bond between them humming with contentment. "Fair point. Though I would argue you are the stubborn one. Who runs toward a wildfire to save a stranger?" "Someone who heard you howling and could not walk away," Vera said simply. "Someone who saw a wolf in pain and decided that mattered more than her own safety. Someone who apparently was too foolish to realize that using her only water on a burning stranger was a terrible survival strategy. Or someone who was exactly brave enough to do what no one else would." Asher's voice grew serious. "Vera, every day I am grateful for that fire, grateful it revealed who you truly are. My savior, my mate, my Luna, The woman who poured her water on a burning wolf and changed both our lives forever. They held each other as the moon rose higher, as the rebuilt territory settled into sleep around them. The wildfire had destroyed so much, had taken lives and homes and left scars that would take years to fully heal. But it had also created this, a bond forged in flames, a love born from sacrifice, a partnership that proved compassion was the greatest strength of all. Vera had poured her water on a burning wolf without knowing he was a king, without expecting anything in return, without calculating whether saving him was worth her own life. She had simply heard someone in pain and chosen to help. And in return, the Alpha King had called her his savior, his mate, his Luna, and had given her a life beyond anything she had imagined possible. The water she poured out in the wildfire had saved more than just one wolf's life. It had saved her own life too, saved her from invisibility, from loneliness, from a future without purpose or belonging. It had transformed her from overlooked human to beloved Luna, from outsider to the most important female in the pack. All because she had made one choice in one moment when it mattered most. To pour her water on a burning wolf and trust that saving him was worth whatever cost she might pay. It was worth it. It was worth everything. And Vera would make that same choice again, without hesitation. Because the woman who gave her water to save a stranger was the same woman who now stood as Luna beside a king. That was who she was. That was who she had always been. The wildfire had not changed her. It had simply revealed her true nature to a pack that had never bothered to look closely enough to see. And now they saw. Now they understood. The human woman who poured her water on a burning wolf was exactly the Luna they needed. Exactly the mate their Alpha King deserved. Exactly the reminder they all required that compassion and sacrifice were worth more than strength or bloodline could ever be. She had saved him from fire. And he had saved her from a life of being unseen. That seemed like a fair trade. A perfect trade. The kind of trade that made both parties better than they had been before. What did you think of Vera and Asher's story? Have you ever made a sacrifice for a stranger that changed your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you love this tale of the woman who gave her only water to save a burning wolf and became his queen, hit subscribe and join our pack. New stories drop every week, celebrating wolves who find mates in the most desperate moments. Humans who prove compassion matters more than bloodline, and the courage it takes to pour out your last resource to save someone you do not even know. Remember, the most extraordinary bonds are often forged in the most terrible circumstances, and sometimes giving everything away is how you gain everything that matters. Did you want part 2? Let me know in the comments.